End of days and the prophecies of Daniel. Before we explore the prophecy of the end of days, we would want to introduce Daniel. Who is he? And when he foresaw his visions foretelling events preceding the coming of the Antichrist and the end of days? The reason why we need to learn about this prophecy is the fact that many of world current events and happenings are falling into order with what Daniel and others after him foretold, such as Nostradamus, whom his version of interpretation managed to sell over 70,000 copies during a couple of months in the late 1970s, and drove the Western culture into a new reality right after the fall of the late Shah of Iran and the rise to power of Ayatollah Khomeini. I can still recall the fear on faces of the common Western man promoted by Western media coverage of events during that era, and how most of the interpretations circled around the shadowy figure of Ayatollah Khomeini, suggesting that he and the faith he represented could very well be the Antichrist or the foster of this demon, saying the least. Daniel was a Jewish prophet who lived most of his life as a member of the royal court, under the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar during the period 605 to 562 BC. His prophecies were also shared by Nebuchadnezzar dreams to form the series of visions later known as the prophecies of the end of days. King Nebuchadnezzar dreams. Daniel chapter 2 ushered the following prophecies. Nebuchadnezzar saw a great statue with a head of gold, chest and arms of silver, belly and tights of bronze, legs of iron, having feet part of iron and another part of clay. He then saw a stone cut out of a mountain and struck that image on its feet, breaking it into pieces. Then the elements of which it consisted of the iron, clay, bronze, silver and gold were all crushed together and were carried away by the wind without a trace to be found. The stone that shattered the image became a huge mountain spreading all over earth. The interpretation regarding the part related to the statue, which is made of 4 elements of gold for the head, silver breast, bronze belly and thighs, and legs of iron, stood for 4 kingdoms, which were gold, Babylon of Nebuchadnezzar, conquered by the 2nd kingdom of silver, Medo-Persia, conquered by bronze, Greece, which was in turn conquered by the Iron Empire of Rome. Yet there is an unfulfilled part of Nebu's dreams, which claims that the stone represented a 5th kingdom which would be cared for by God himself, the indestructible kingdom of God, when after the final battle of Armageddon it will rule over the whole world, crushing and consuming all other existing kingdoms, standing alone forever. This kingdom will consist 2 parts, and it will have the strength of iron and clay, combined together as concrete, and it is believed to represent today's European Union, consisting of 10 nations. Daniel in his turn also saw a series of dreams related to Nebu's dreams. In his first dream, Daniel saw 4 beasts coming out from what is believed to be the Mediterranean Sea. First beast like a lion with eagle wings, second beast a bear-like raised up on one side with 3 ribs in its mouth, third beast like a 4-headed leopard with 4 sets of wings, the fourth was a terrible and strong beast with iron teeth that devoured all and made war with God's people, breaking them into pieces. Those 4 beasts represented 4 kingdoms in a similar fashion to the dream of King Nebuchadnezzar: lion for Babylon, bear for Medo-Persia, third leopard for Greece, and the fourth for Rome, which was also related to the 10 horns or nations, and the little horn which plucks 3 of the other horns out of its roots, and in this horn there were eyes similar to that of a man, and a mouth that utters pompous words. And the 10 nations of Rome became to have a face with eyes of man that may only indicate to the leaders of the 10 nations, one of those leaders will sprout up from among them, and out of greed and ambition for power will cause the demise of 3 of the 10 leaders. Both of Nebu's and Daniel's dreams conclude that this ambitious horn will be slain, and his body will be disposed of in the fire of hell. Then the one like the Son of Man, reference to the Messiah, comes with the clouds of heaven, given an everlasting dominion and glory, uniting all nations and languages who would serve under him and his kingdom which will never perish. According to sayings related by Jesus describing the days to come, as days of great tribulation and atrocities exceeding those committed by Rome or Hitler. In his second dream, Daniel saw in some details the coming of the Antichrist to power. He saw a ram symbol from Persia having two horns or leaders, and he sees a goat charging at the ram, breaking his two horns and subduing him to surrender. As the goat grows in power, its single horn as a leader is broken and replaced by four new horns leaders, one of which grows rapidly greater than the rest. This horn is thought to be the Antichrist. Christ will later in time perish after a fierce and fatal confrontation with Jesus somewhere in Palestine. In the New Testament, revelation of end-of-time prophecies foretells of similar outcome of events yet to come, which matches with what is contained in the 70 weeks prophecy of Daniel, all ending up with an Armageddon during a time of great tribulation and persecution to the faithful, though the faithful in the Old and New Testament mentions only Jews and Christians, and that is understandable due to the nature of such holy books and those who follow them. Yet if we apply a thorough observation of other scriptures such as the Holy Quran and the Islamic interpretation of end-of-days events and the emergence of the same Antichrist, we would swiftly come to realize that such shared detailed content would certainly persuade the non-bias, that persecution would fall upon all of those who believe in the one God regardless of creed or race. In simple terms, it would be a war between good and evil against humanity in general. This should drive all religions to unite against such evil so that humanity would have a fair chance to conquer and defeat the Antichrist. Since the Antichrist is one of the children of Satan, he would not be an actual human even though he takes a human form and displays human qualities and characteristics to the naked eye. Yet only the true faithful ones would be able to identify him, championed by who is believed to be Saint George or Al-Qadr according to the Islamic version of coming events, who would challenge the Antichrist and lure him into using his powers to kill him and revive him the first time, then fails to repeat this act and realizes that his end is nigh. The main stage where the final confrontation will take place is believed to be in Palestine. This is why the Western world, driven by their own Christian interpretations, are carefully monitoring whatever is related to the security of Israel, and its well-being, driven by their own conclusion that the Antichrist and his followers would be from the Gentiles, which is meant to describe today's Arabs, even though Arabs are also Semites, since they are cousins of the Jews in lineage, both of the grandchildren of Abraham's. In this article we avoided going into the details of the end-of-days prophecies, since our target is current world events and what is believed as an appropriate interpretation by the Western school of Christianity, and it is only fair to mention that Eastern school of Christianity does not necessarily share the same conviction, being aware that Christianity still thrived and survived in the Middle East with the support of majority Islam, backed up by the historical version of events, that the only persecution suffered by Christians of that region was that exercised by the Roman invasion 2,000 years ago. In the most common interpretation of the Revelation, it is worth noting that the prediction of the retreat of the United States from its influential political role, especially in the Middle East, and the expansion of Russia to fill in as replacement is actually coming into reality, as it's become obvious if we monitor how the political stage is reshaping nowadays. It is also believed that the United States is involved in creating a Sunni coalition of extremists led by Qatar to confront the growing influence and expansion of Shiite-led Iran camp. The current trend and behavior of present world dictators and tyrants indicates to the presence of a common pattern amongst them. All boldly hold on to power by all brute means available, regardless of how many thousands of victims are exterminated. The pattern is a clear evil in every sense available to describe such crime: extermination, annexation, and the strong confiscate what belongs to the weak with no hesitation or fear of repercussions, such as what is happening in Syria or Ukraine and present Israel, where Christian and Muslim Palestinians and African Jews are victims to the persecution of the State of Israel against them since decades, with an unquestionable support by the West. The other thing the interpretations focus upon is the attack on the Church and what ethics it stands for, and that too is happening so explicitly, such as the direct abomination committed against the sacred ritual of marriage, leading the Pope to embarrassingly avoid judging the same-sex marriage rights, even though God in all holy books and inherited sacred scrolls and scriptures clearly prohibits such act of defiance to God and what the core of our existence stands for, probably leading to an inevitable decimation to our survival as the dominant species on Earth. And now here is the finale. What is the one thing totally shared by all major religions? They are all waiting for their own Messiah, and their extremists also share the same interest in speeding up events in preparation for his arrival. Such preparation dictates that chaos, oppression and persecution should spread as a precondition before the Messiah emerges with the clouds. What is needed to refute this evil is by all humans to unite under one flag, the flag that stands alone for humanity, equality and freedom for all to share in peace, the right to exist and live our destined fate on this planet. After all, isn't that what spirituality stands for? Last thing we need to do is to separate religion from politics so that our future generations may have a chance to live in peace.